U.S. president today justifying military action in American cities to root out the enemy within.
Trump's flipping a coin, and he's telling Democrats
just a year ago that was illegal in the United States.
That's not
DC Prime Minister Mark Carney will be heading to the U.S. Capitol next.
It's exhausting, isn't it? Every day, there's a new headline,
Breaking news,
a new controversy,
breaking news,
or a new wild thing President Trump said.
And they say, we don't need him, freedom, freedom, he's a dictator, he's a dictator. A lot of people are saying maybe we like a dictator.
With all the noise, it's easy just to tune everything out. And especially if you live in another country, like we do. You might be wondering, why should I listen? Does any of this actually matter? It does matter. This is leading up to something, and that something is called authoritarianism. Authoritarianism means strict obedience to the government. The power sits in the hands of one person or a small group, while everyone else gets little to no say. Freedoms are set aside, based on the government's desires. So why bring this up now? Because one of the most powerful democracies in the world is quickly moving in that direction. And if the United States falls, the world could fall with it. Each day we wait, the harder it is to undo. We need to act now. So how do we recognize the rise of authoritarianism? And most importantly, how do we stop it? Throughout history, those who sought to control understood one principle. The ultimate power lies not in the army, but in manipulating what people think. How? Propaganda. This is information used to manipulate people's opinions. Propaganda uses a set of techniques designed to subtly shape your feelings, guide your thoughts, and ultimately make you act in a certain way. It is a powerful tool in all societies, and can take the form of posters, speeches, advertisements, social media, and pretty much anything that can get your attention. Propaganda is often subtle, but can start to change the way you feel about a topic or leader if you're exposed to it often. With authoritarians, its goal is to often make you stop thinking independently, and instead believe and obey. It creates a fake world where the leaders are always right, and having different opinions is a crime. Nobody is immune to propaganda, but these methods can be recognizable. For example, they create an us versus them mentality, to pit people against each other and create fear and unrest within the population. They often use symbols, appeal to your fears or desires, repetition, and emotionally charged language to affect the way you think. The good news is that the more you know about these tricks, the less likely you are to be affected by them. So how has it been used? A prime example of propaganda comes from the Nazis. They had propaganda down to a science, with some of the most infamous uses of symbols in history. These brought national pride to Germans as a mechanism of uniting them, along with their Hitler rallies that we all know and hate. Another primary target of the Nazis was young people, specifically the Hitler Youth for boys and the League of German Girls. Here, they trained kids to be loyal Nazis, and partook in activities such as camping, marching, and learning Nazi ideology, all designed to replace family and religion with loyalty to Hitler. This strategy of targeting youth has evolved and taken new form, persisting until modern times. However, today things look very different. Propaganda is now much more hidden, yet underlying tones still appear. It spreads through social media, open to millions of people, no longer controlled by one voice. This is where algorithms come in. Platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and even Google don't just show us information randomly. They recommend certain content and alter the material you engage with. This often pushes us towards one way of thinking, shaping our reality without us realizing. Social media has completely changed the way young people, like us, experience the world. It opens us up to a huge variety of topics and perspectives. But for youth still figuring out their identities, it can be confusing. It is easy to scroll through a short video, feel convinced, and never question it. We have many examples of how this plays out. Artificial intelligence was used by Donald Trump to mock and belittle past Democratic leaders.
There's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore. We have no voters left because of all of our woke trans bullshit. Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Even Latinos hate us.
When leaders spread and create media like this, it lowers the standard of political discussion and gives people an excuse to act the same way. We need leaders who focus on solutions, not division. That's the danger we face today. Propaganda is woven into the platforms we use every day. If we don't learn to question what we see, we risk letting algorithms and misinformation shape our vision of the truth. A huge part of how the truth is spread is the media. We often focus on leaders and dictators who demand loyalty and obedience. However, their power relies heavily on storytelling, specifically propaganda, which goes beyond posters and speeches and strategically shapes information, controlling what people see and how they understand reality. In such regimes, media ceases to be neutral. It becomes a state's loudspeaker. Take Nazi Germany, where Joseph Goebbels transformed media into tools of persuasion and into a true art, promoting Nazi ideology as truth.
Zu Ende sein und dann wird den Juden das freche Lügenmaul gestopft werden.
In Cambodia, Pol Pot's regime restricted information to present the outside world as corrupt. Today, North Korean state media glorifies its leader while isolating citizens from outside perspectives. Propaganda operates by saturating people with single narratives and silencing opposing voices. Over time, this makes it difficult for individuals to trust their instincts, as they only encounter the regime's version of reality. The media is not only an observer in authoritarian context, it's a battleground. By controlling the media, regimes can dictate not only what people think, but also what they're capable of thinking. Authoritarianism doesn't arrive overnight. It spreads quietly, touching every part of society. Media, courts, schools, and political systems, all pillars of freedom, can crumble under pressure. Corruption bends rules for personal gain. Censorship controls the story citizens receive. Institutions meant to protect people can be turned into tools of power. You may have noticed this even in modern democracies. Jimmy Kimmel faced backlash for mocking politicians.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
Clips of Donald Trump making absurd or contradictory statements show how leaders can test the limits of free speech.
You can call that free speech or not. He was fired for lack of talent.
Tonight, protests outside of ABC headquarters. The reaction to Jimmy Kimmel being pulled from American airwaves as polarized as the country's politics.
You can't go around firing somebody because you're fearful or trying to suck up to an authoritarian criminal administration.
Even in the United States, these pressures remind us how fragile protections can be. Authoritarian regimes start by controlling information. Media and entertainment can reshape to serve those in power.
Sort of celebrating like the biggest bill of its kind ever signed, and it's going to make this country into a rocket ship.
Without reliable news, citizens begin to see a version of reality designed for them.
I will never lie to you. That seems like a long time ago. Nowadays, lying, or to put it politely, disinterest in true facts, is standard operating procedure in our political culture.
But control doesn't stop at headlines. It reaches into courts, education, and political competition. Courts are meant to protect citizens and uphold justice.
Or not guilty. What do you say? guilty.
In authoritarian states, judges follow loyalty instead of evidence. Laws are rewritten, peaceful protests or private conversations can suddenly be criminalized. Corruption becomes invisible when institutions meant to safeguard people are repurposed to protect power. One-party dominance magnifies these problems. Historical examples like Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union show us how opposition disappears. Courts become rubber stamps, and schools are reshaped to teach obedience. Modern Russia illustrates that even today, legal systems can mask authoritarian control. Education, however, stands as one of the strongest defenses against authoritarianism. When citizens are taught to think critically, they can recognize lies, question authority, and resist propaganda. Dictators know this, which is why schools and universities are often targeted first. Even in democracies, subtle threats exist. Claims of election fraud.
Weird how 20+ million Democrats just disappeared in a single election.
We got to straighten out our election. This country is so sick because of the election, the fake elections and the bad elections, and we're going to straighten it out one way or the other.
Attacks on media and pressure on courts show that no system is immune. Timothy Snyder warns that one-party dominance begins with these small cracks.
It happens fast. It happens fast, right? I mean, there are a few clean-cut cases of revolution, but even when it's not a clean revolution, like 1917, even when it's not a clean revolution, a regime change only takes about 1 to 3 years. And if it only takes 1 to 3 years, that means that while you're looking around, the important things are already happening, right? They're already happening, they're already underway. By making us focus on the day-to-day and think, okay, well, I'm just going to adjust to what happened today. You know, tomorrow's another day. Maybe there won't be a total disaster tomorrow. You do that long enough, and the disaster has arrived.
Media, law, political competition, and education are connected. Weakening one pillar can strain the others, creating a system where authoritarianism can spread. Citizens who understand their value, defend institutions, and stay informed create the strongest defense against tyranny. Protecting institutions is not just a civic duty, it is the foundation of freedom. So why is it that when education falls, the people fall with it? First, let's define what it means for the people to fall. When we see constant punishment, fear, and propaganda, over time it tends to break people's spirits. This means that the people end up losing their voice.
A flag burning mob, and we've made it 1 year penalty for inciting riots. We took the freedom of speech away.
Trump administration is clearly on defense now over these proven attacks on free speech and confessions, admissions of improper motive by senior officials.
It ultimately leads to the people falling to the authoritarian regime. Education brings knowledge to people, bringing the opportunity to formulate their own opinions. Once education becomes limited, the free-minded don't become as free.
Like in the US, classes are literally, to use a word which is overused, but classes are literally being canceled because they are about race or because they're about gender or they're about the wrong kind of history.
When learning becomes filtered, it ends up silencing voices and perspectives, some of which are absolutely necessary to hear. As a past example, in Nazi Germany, schools were used as tools of propaganda. Students were fed with information that glorified Hitler and his policies, instead of encouraging questioning or debate. Without the ability to think critically, students could not resist his control. So how does this connect to the USA? We see huge similarities with book banning.
Around the country, efforts to ban specific books.
Book bans. A book ban.
Books are being banned from schools and libraries.
Weak civic education.
How many Supreme Court justices are there?
6 or 7.
And classes being cancelled that focus on gender and race.
The classes are literally being cancelled.
On top of this, the misinformation that gets produced online can make people even more susceptible to propaganda. When education starts failing the citizens by not teaching truth or critical thinking, out of fear, people lose the tools to resist, leading to the fall. Just like in the past, we can see many warning signs that are just being overlooked.
I will give you examples, but the overall atmosphere is very important, right? The atmosphere of untruth, which you can't really reduce to a particular example. Because it's not just like the guy lies, it's that he is deliberately generating an atmosphere of fiction all the time. And likewise with fear. We can give examples of people being afraid, being examples of policies, and you already mentioned the most dramatic one, which is seizing people without habeas corpus and incarcerating them in random places and then sending them off to random countries.
This leads to the lessons from the book On Tyranny by Timothy Snyder. In his book, he gives us a clear guide on how people can avoid falling into authoritarianism. He also highlights the mistakes that often lead them there. One of Snyder's most important lessons is in Lesson 1.
I'm going to read you 20 Lessons on Tyranny by Timothy Snyder. You may have already heard these, but it's time you heard them again. Number 1, do not obey in advance.
He tells us how people often fall not because they suddenly support authoritarianism, but because they fail to resist the early warning signs.
We won with poorly educated. I love the poorly educated.
If we ignore these attacks on education or the limits on free speech, we are fertilizing the soil for authoritarian growth. To learn about dictators and how they control and manipulate the masses, we must first learn about how they gain power to begin with. Dictators often take control in the midst of a crisis. This could be a famine, a fractured economy, or even war.
But we are under invasion from within. We're stopping it.
They use these disasters as a way to gain popularity and manipulate people. A common tactic they use is making people feel like they are the answer, like they are the hero, ready to save the country and all its people. In reality, they aren't trying to save the country, they're trying to fix it to their own image.
Hundreds of armed federal agents and police, backed up by riot trucks, smoke grenades, and helicopters, breached fences and busted doors in an immigration raid on an entire apartment building.
The most basic example of this is Hitler. Germany's pride was hurt, their economy was at an all-time low, and the people were broken. Hitler promised to rebuild the economy, create jobs, and restore German pride. His fiery, passionate speeches tricked Germans into believing he was their savior. This was far from the truth. Once a dictator gains control, it becomes a lot harder to get them out of power. Things start to change when they are in power. All of a sudden, there is only one party controlling the country, and their true colors start to be revealed.
San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, they're very unsafe places, and we're going to straighten them out one by one. And this is going to be a major part for some of the people in this room. That's a war, too. It's a war from within. I told Pete we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military.
So how do leaders actually convince their people? Leaders will feed off negative emotions. For example, news outlets and propaganda will make people feel left out, exaggerate the truth, or create fear in people. In the United States, Trump has been threatening to cut journalists off, especially those who speak out against him. This creates biased news outlets, creating more support towards the president. The other ways Trump gets his support, though, is his cult following. He used his fans to influence the rest of the population and create unrest with political acts such as the January 6th incident. Trump held a rally after the 2020 election, in which he told his followers that the election was stolen and encouraged them to walk to the Capitol and make their voices heard. He said, "We fight like hell, and if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore." This planted the seed of violence and further separation in the parties, implying that under Biden's leadership, the country would fall apart. But how does any of this actually convince anyone? There's a mix of things that manipulate people, but the biggest reasons are creating a toxic mix of fear, polarization, scapegoating, and chronic anxiety. All of these mixed with an overwhelming amount of information create a reaction in the brain. Usually sensory information goes to the thalamus, then up to the cerebral cortex, which processes the information. People fall into dictatorships when they stop questioning what they're told. That's why critical thinking matters so much. If we can think for ourselves, check the facts, and not just believe everything we hear, it's harder for anyone to control us. History shows that freedom usually disappears when people give up their ability to question. In the end, the best defense against falling is using our own minds, instead of letting someone else do the thinking for us. Imagine a world where you have no voice,
Deutschen Volkes und der deutschen Regierung.
where one person has complete and total power over you. Your family, and everyone around you. Where you don't even have what we now consider basic human rights and freedoms. This is the reality of a dictatorship. And right now, many nations around the world are beginning or continuing a march towards this future. Authoritarianism doesn't storm in overnight. It creeps in slowly, quietly, step by step. But all it takes to stop it is one small act of resistance. And everyone has a role to play in defending democracy, in defending the fair treatment of people, including us. So how do we fight back? The answer doesn't have to be one big, heroic act. It's in many small but strong choices, made by ordinary people just like you. You might be asking, what kind of small acts of resistance? Well, we can look into the past to figure out what can be done in these modern instances of authoritarianism.
Freedom, freedom. He's a dictator. He's a dictator. A lot of people are saying maybe we like a dictator.
For example, let's look into one of the biggest change makers during one of the most extreme examples of authoritarianism. During the Holocaust, there was a young woman named Teresa Prekharova. When she was 17 years old, she had to move to Warsaw, the capital of Poland. Her father was arrested, one of her uncles was killed in battle. 2 of her brothers were in German prisoner of war camps. Even so, she stood out against everyone else in how she reacted. In October of 1940, many Jews living in Warsaw were forced to move to a certain district of the city. Teresa watched how everyone else just accepted the fact that their Jewish friends were being taken away and out of their lives. In 1942, Teresa helped a Jewish girl and her family that she had known before escape the Warsaw ghetto, risking her life just by entering. That summer, Germans deported 265,000 Jews to a death factory and killed another 10,000 in the ghetto. Teresa risked her life by standing out. Standing out today matters just as much. However, it doesn't have to mean risking your life. It can mean refusing to stay silent.
You have a vote. You also have a voice. We have to be able to demonstrate. We have to be able to write letters and have freedom of speech. We have to be able to talk to the next generation.
I believe education is at the core. We can't be ignorant. We can't be complacent and have to actively fight. So that can be in just informing ourselves, being aware of what's going on, reading, talking to people. I'm a firm believer in people to people.
So the only way that we can go up against a dictator or authoritarianism is to elect people that will stand up to that bully and stand up to that dictator.
This leads to the bigger question: how do we know when it's time to act? In times like these, the most important thing to do is to stay in tune with your feelings. Trust your instincts. Our instincts as humans are built to tell us when something is wrong. If you ever feel afraid to share your opinion, afraid to practice your rights, something is wrong. And that is exactly when it matters most to speak up. Another example of resisting authoritarianism is Poland. After World War II, Poland fell under a one-party communist dictatorship. Elections were rigged, the press was censored, and the secret police made speaking out dangerous. People stayed quiet until 1980, when shipyard workers in Gdansk decided silence was no longer an option. They formed Solidarity, the first independent union in the Soviet bloc, an anti-authoritarian social movement that united people across the country. What began as a strike grew into a nationwide movement. Millions of workers, students, priests, and everyday citizens demanding dignity and freedom. Government tried everything: arrests, martial law, censorship, but Solidarity survived. A decade later, they forced free elections and toppled the dictatorship. The lesson? Ordinary people can change the course of history. Resistance isn't about being a hero overnight. It's about steady, collective action. Small choices, joined together, can crack authoritarian power. And this matters here, in Canada. Democracy isn't guaranteed. If you think, it could never happen here, that's when you've already let your guard down.
I thought, my God, we're like people on the Titanic, saying our ship can't sink. We've got the best ship, we've got the strongest ship, we've got the biggest ship, our ship can't sink.
The fight for freedom is never finished, and it's your generation that must carry it forward. Because when people get used to small acts of courage, they build a culture of resistance. And when that culture is strong, no leader can take away freedoms without being challenged. Authoritarianism doesn't win unless we let it. We are the change makers of tomorrow. We decide what happens.